Good news.
What's that?
I cablegrammed from Blake. He won't be needing a transplant anymore.
Hey, that's great news. Did you hear that, George? We've been rejected.
You and me both, George.
What?
He's gonna marry his nurse.
Well, you know, I've got the greatest idea I've ever had. As long as you were engaged to part of me, why not just take the whole thing?
You really mean it?
All right, pause it
Yes.
for a second.
You're engaged?
All right, for a second.
Wait, what?
What?
She's engaged to the guy's brother 10 minutes ago. Then
And he's shacking up with a nurse.
Then she gets the telegram saying, I don't need the kidney. P.S. I've fallen in love with my nurse. I feel like that's a face-to-face conversation.
That's a lot of info.
Hit her with the kidney information, during, I don't know if they charge by the letter when they do those telegrams.
Cablegrams.
Cablegrams. But he also included in the cablegram that he's fallen in love with his nurse. I was also thinking, remember when nurse used to be a hot person job?
Sure.
Oh, yeah.
Hello, nurse.
I was like, oh, he fell in love with his nurse. And as Matt the Porcelain Punisher was pointing out earlier, school teacher used to be ugly person job and nurse was good looking person job. Now nurse is unattractive person job and school teacher's hot person job. But either way, Drew, he no longer needs a kidney transplant. Did you know that?
Yeah, it's incredible. It's a miracle.
It's a miracle. He needed a new kidney for all these months and years, and now he doesn't need it anymore.
And by
Have
the way,
you ever,
he's got
Adam,
enough
brought
to
up to
continue
Drew
his
the
nervous
episode
system.
where he diagnoses the guy with ALS in a matter of like an hour? Like,
yeah.
Drew,
Brian, what?
No, not
it's
an hour.
it's impossible. There's no test for ALS.
second.
It's a long weeding out process.
Believe you me, Brian, it was discussed many times. We discussed it much longer than it took Bricker to diagnose that guy with ALS.
Terminal illness.
Yeah. So we'll roll it back a second, but the brother doesn't need the kidney. He's referring to George or whatever as his kidney, saying my kidney, George, like he named his kidney. So he doesn't need him. So then once she figures out that we don't need the kidney and he's fallen in love with his nurse, now the brother, who she's had very limited contact with, and again, has not so much kissed or hugged yet, he's going to propose that they marry instead. And guess who's over the moon about it? She is. All right,
Well,
sorry.
she's out of options. She's only
She's desperate.
Model-esque.
She's 25-year-old model. Sorry, play it again, Max Pata.
As long as you were engaged to part of me, why not just take the whole thing?
You really mean it?
Yes. My turn to buy you a ring. As soon as we get off the plane in L.A. Of course, maybe you want to take some time to think about it?
Oh, are you kidding? I already cabled my Uncle George. He'll be waiting for us at the airport with a suitcase full of samples.
Well,
All right, her Uncle George is obviously a jeweler.
Yeah.
She gets this cable that says he doesn't need a kidney and I've fallen in love with I don't need a kidney and I've fallen in love with my nurse. And then she says, okay, let me send a cable out to my Uncle George, who's going to have engagement rings waiting for us when we get off the plane at LAX. Without discussing, hasn't discussed anything with the guy yet.
Right. If this was a love line call, wouldn't you say, honey, it sounds like you might be in shock.
Yes.
This
Yes.
is not a rational decision.
Trauma.
I love
Yeah,
the
trauma.
Funny, I'm thinking it's more a sign that people need to have more, back then needed to have more casual sex. They were so desperate to have sex, they had to get married first.
She throws herself into his arms, starts kissing his face and neck, and is so excited. It's also the way we looked at women back then. Like, of course she's desperate to get married. She's 24 and a half. What are her options?
She better be thrilled.
Right. And also, it would seem like that would merit a discussion. You were engaged to my brother for 2 years. Now you found out you're not. He's in a hospital somewhere with a nurse. Like, perhaps this is just a fever that's come over him. Perhaps we should wait till he gets fluids back in his body before you physically marry the brother.
Yeah.
Or maybe we go out to dinner once. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm a Christian and you're an atheist. Maybe you're a Raiders fan and I love Denver. You know what I mean? Like we should hash out a couple of thoughts before we
You're
actually get married.
traditionalist.
Yes. I'm uncut. Do you have an aversion to uncircumcised people? Well, we don't know. We should find out.
As long as you name him George.
She dives. And there's always the problem with these stories is they have to take kind of goofy, unassuming guys and put them with supermodels. And then they make the supermodel desperate.
Yeah.
This person is like one of the best looking 24-year-old people on the planet, and she's so fucking desperate just to marry anybody, even goofy Skip Stevenson. So there it is. I want to run that one more time. It's 30 seconds. Now we know the backstory.
He was never here nor there about it. He could really could have taken her, leaving her.
Also, he was getting off the boat. Like, she just ran up to him.
Like, close call.
Yeah. And, they never really account for, what if the guy just rubbed one out in his cabin before he got off the boat and was kind of in his refractory period? Like, sweetie, easy with the hugging. This is Gabardine. All right, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll play it again.
Pete! Good news.
What's that?
I cablegram from Blake. He won't be needing a transplant anymore.
Hey, that's great news. Did you hear that, George? We've been rejected.
You and me both, George. He's gonna marry his nurse.
Well, I've got the greatest idea I've ever had. As long as you were engaged to part of me, why not just take the whole thing?
You really mean it?
You really mean it?
My turn to buy your ring. As soon as we get off the plane in L.A. Of course, maybe you want to take some time to think about it?
Oh, are you kidding? I already cabled my Uncle George. He'll be waiting for us at the airport with a suitcase full of samples.
Well, call that a rebound.
Two things. First of all, in the writer's room, out of all of these things, they couldn't come up with another name for the uncle since the kidney was already named George.
Oh, yeah.
Also, did you see her face when she said, looks like my brother's going to marry his nurse? Bit her bottom lip, looked him up and down. She's lying. I think there needs to be a part two. She's a black widow.
Let's wait.
Wow. I have strong feelings about this after giving it a second look.
My chauffeur, George, will ferry us straight to the airport, my dear. And our pilot, George, will make haste as we go to LAX. Yeah. I also have to think about the logistics for everything. Like, your uncle's just going to be hanging out with a suitcase full of jewelry at LAX.
Seems safe.
He's going to get arrested.
I know. Yeah. She's so excited. Also, no follow-up questions. He's been going to give her a kidney like Selena Gomez's friend was for all these months. And then she's like, good news. He doesn't need the kidney anymore. He's like, okay, let's get married. Like, he doesn't go like, what the fuck? He should really get a second opinion, right?
His nurse?
His nurse?
It's his brother.
Yeah. Well, it's his brother. Yeah. I feel like his brother should have reached out to him, the guy who was wringing his hands about this kidney surgery the whole time. He should have been the first to know. Anyway, another fantastic episode of Loveline, all wrapped up in 28 seconds. I mean,
hey, Drew, how often does someone in need of a kidney transplant all of a sudden not need the kidney transplant?
Let me think. Never. Never.
Well, what about if that person's newly in love?
I was telling Adam, is the conceit in the writer's room that being on the Love Boat is so phantasmagoric that magical things just happen? Is it like Fantasy Island when you go on the Love Boat?
Element,
is that what they were thinking? I mean, what were they thinking back then?
Well, I don't want to be a naysayer, Drew, but from watching the Love Boat carefully over the years, it's a two-way street because you can either not need a kidney or you can get full-blown Lou Gehrig's disease right in the middle of the buffet. Right. You know what I mean? So
it's a real coin toss.
It's a real you are fucking rolling the dice when you get on that boat medically.